Hi guys, and welcome back. In this tutorial, we'll be learning about the Decorator Brush. So the first thing we want to do is go into the folder where our Halo 3 module is installed and click the top address bar here and type in CMD. After that, let's type in Tool, space, Scenario, dash Merge, and the location of the map you want to add the decorations on. So for this example, we're going to be doing Zanzibar. So our scenario name is Zanzibar. So now we just click enter. And once this is done, we can now open up this file in Sapien. We'll notice here there's two files now in our folder. Let's select the Zanzibar _ merge.scenario. Before we begin, I just want to give a shout out to Sheer for helping me with this. Cool. So here we are in our map. Now, the reason we do that scenario merge is because for some reason the decorator brush does not save if you don't do that. And we're just going to open up scenario and go under structure data and click decorator brush and also click the plus beside it. I just wanted to note that if you're on a level that already has some decorators on it and you click the decorator brush, it'll highlight every single decorator in the level. Now, I just wanted to note, this is not the way it will look in the final game. When you build your level, it'll look like it does regularly. To illustrate more what I mean, I've cut the screen in half and showing the left side in Sapien and the right side is that same file that's been built in MCC. So you can see how it looks in Sapien compared to MCC. And now back to the tutorial. Now with Decorator Brush selected, let's change some settings here. Let's make your left button brush to Airbrush Add and the right button brush to Airbrush Erase. And we don't need to really worry about these reapply flags now. The render flags, you want to have render preview on and don't render lines on. For action flags, let's have clamp scale on and select all decorator sets on. So let's click on decorator sets and hit new instance. But create this blank element here, and on the right in your properties palette, you want to click the three dots. You want to go up two folders, and in the shared folder, you'll see decorators. Now, there's a lot of different decorators in this folder, but for now, we're just going to click under foliage here, and you'll see there's tons of foliage options. Let's select debris leaves, new instance, three dots, up a folder. Let's select the fern, the regular fern, not the Valhalla one. And let's add one more here. And let's make that the plant spade leaf. Okay, cool. So now that we have that done, let's just select the decorator palette. So the decorator palette, we want to click new instance and you'll see we have palette 0. Now, essentially what this is when you paint, instead of painting just one specific thing, you could choose between anything that you'd select here, and you could also choose how often the item will occur. So to show you guys an example, let's select decorator set 0 and change that to debris leaves and select the weight of that to 10. Let's select decorator set 1, change that to fern and set that decorator weight to 5. Then let's select the second decorator set 2 and set that to our plant spade leaf and set that weight to 1. Now let's click the decorator brush here, and to get it to actually view, you want to make sure you have your brush shape will have the unspherical. Our current palette, let's just select none for now. Current set, let's just set that to fern and your paint rate to 1. And let's not worry about the color for now. So you'll see you have these two circles appear. If you want to know some hotkeys, you could extend out the properties palette. Now, if we read the hotkeys, we can increase the brush size with the square brackets, increase and decrease the feather size with plus minus, and the brush opacity is the paint rate. So if you pay attention to this paint rate, if we select these numbers, it will change that. Now let's just click and hold. So we're clicking and holding our left mouse button, and we're getting all these beautiful ferns. Now that's cool, but let's select our palette that we had created. To do that, let's change our current set to none. Now let's go to the current palette and select palette 0. Let's look over here and now click and hold. So you can see here it's using the elements that we had put in earlier into the Decorator palette and placing those according to the weights. So you can see here we have lots of ferns, lots of this grass debris, it's kind of yellow, and very few of these spades. We can just paint that as much as we want, and if we change this paint rate to a lower number, like 0.1, if you click and hold, you'll notice it doesn't paint much at all. It's not very dense. This is pretty much the speed at which you paint when you click and hold. So if you change that to 1, you can see here it's a lot faster when you click and hold. Now we're going to take a look at the brushes. So let's click the left button brush drop down and let's select the airbrush color. Now down here, let's set the paint color to a really dark gray, not quite black, but really dark gray, just like that, and click OK. Now, you want to make sure your paint rate here is set to 0.1. Again, you can do that by clicking the number 1 on your keyboard. So these plants look kind of out of place here because they're a bit too bright. So to solve that, we can actually paint the color over them. So whatever color we have selected here in the paint color, it'll paint that onto our decorators. So for example, I can change this to red. And we have the paint rate set to 0.1, so I can just lightly, quickly tap it, and you can see they're kind of red here, or I can click and hold and kind of keep going in circles to paint it really red. This is useful maybe if you want to have some more dead looking bushes, you can kind of paint them a bit of a yellowy color and you can make some green and so on. So for now, let's just change that to a darker color and just kind of click and drag on our objects. Or you want to almost tap sometimes. That way you can kind of control the rate at which you're painting. So let's just say you by mistake have black selected and you paint and you have your paint rate to 1 and it instantly makes them blacked out like this. What you want to do is change the paint color to slightly off-white. And once you have that, make sure your paint rate's on 0.1 and you can lighten these up again and then you can go back into your slightly darker color and repaint them just like that. Alright, so the next brush we're going to take a look at is the scale brush. If you look here, it's kind of in the middle. Let's click it and now let's just go over and click and drag and you'll notice it's increasing the size of all these ferns. Now that's pretty cool, but let's go ahead and select the next brush, which is Scale Additive. For this, you can click and hold, and you'll notice nothing's happening still. That's because we have the clamp scale on. Now if we click, you'll notice they can grow much, much bigger. Cool. The next thing I'm going to take a look at is the Rotate Random. This is pretty straightforward. It just randomizes the rotation of whatever you have selected. The rotate normal does something similar, but it's using a different method. You also have rotate local, which again is just using a different method. The eraser is just a straight up eraser. You can see we can remove whatever we want here if we click and drag. And the next one here is really important, the reapply type settings. So let's select that, and you'll see here under reapply flags, these are all the things that are essentially going to be reset. So let's turn off reapply all decorators. Let's turn off orientation and hover, and let's just use the scale. So you can see at the brung brush there, let's change this one to Airbrush erase and this one to reapply type settings. So you can see here, if I just click and drag and slowly go over, the scale is all going back to normal. That is because what this brush does is whatever settings you have on checked here, it'll reset them back to original. So for instance, we go here into the airbrush color, and let's just paint these bright red. Now, let's change that to a reapply type settings, and if we click and drag, you'll see they're changing back to our default color. In addition, you can select the bottom one, reapply to all decorators, and that'll do every single decorator on the map. The next setting here we have is comb. The comb brush is used to almost groom your decorators to face a certain direction. So if you click and drag, you can see here, these are kind of being flattened out towards the wall because I've clicked and dragged them from the right to the left, just like that. The next brush here is thin, and thin will remove some of the decorators, essentially thinning out your selection. So now that we know how to use the decorator brush, we're going to do more of a kind of real map example. So for now, let's just make our brush really big, and let's make sure our right button brush is set to erase and hit right click, and that will make everything disappear. Let's turn our brush size down a bit, and you can see we're working on our palette right now, palette 0. And I'm going to make this a bit smaller. I'm going to click 5 to change my paint rate to 0.5, and I'm just going to click and drag here right along this wall, and maybe some are going up the wall like that, and I'm going to go over here and do the same. So that's looking pretty nice. So the next thing I'm going to do is change the left button brush from add airbrush to color, and we're going to change the color to, again, a darker kind of gray, and then let's set our paint rate to 0.1 by clicking 1 on our keyboard. Alright, so now that we have that done, we're just going to click and drag and just click our mouse a bit here to make these look like they fit in more with the map. So that's already looking a lot better. Cool. Now let's just repeat that for the other side. There we go. Cool. So now we've just used a decorator brush in a practical way. That's pretty much it for this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.